You've been fingerboarding for almost as long as I've been alive.
Coincided like that, yeah. They told me that Annie Yan was soon to be born. Start fingerboarding now. Get a head start.
Welcome to the very first episode of a new series I'm starting on this channel called The Boardroom. Over the last year or so of making videos again, and I guess taking things a little bit more seriously, something I've always tried to do is to create a link between customers and companies. I've tried to do this through reviews where usually I'm lucky enough to get to speak to the maker of the product and I give you guys a bit more extra information that isn't necessarily available on their website or Instagram. I also have my podcast, The Fingerboard Brew, that I host with Evan, which is currently on pause. But for some reason, neither of these things really, for me, satisfied what I wanted to be doing with my involvement in fingerboarding. Another thing too with podcasts is that not everybody wants to sit down and listen to at least 60 minutes of content, and that's kind of where the boardroom comes in. I wanted to create this series to get an insight into some of the creative processes of these amazing companies that we all know through their products, but maybe not necessarily their makers or owners. Whether it's in fingerboarding, clothing, or even in the big corporate world, I think there's so much more to a brand or a company, but more often than not, we don't get to hear from the people behind them. With the boardroom, my goal is to more directly connect customers with companies by trying to get to know them a bit better and hearing from the people behind the scenes. I already filmed the first 2 interviews or episodes, and I'm so excited to share this with you. To debut this project, I decided to speak to the man behind one of my favorite fingerboard companies of all time, Simon Cartledge from Cartwheels.
My name is Simon. I own Cartwheels and I started fingerboarding about nearly 20 years ago.
So I'm interested to know, as a wheel maker yourself, what some of your favorite wheels are and why, like some companies or something like that.
A year or so ago, I'd used most of, obviously in the last year, loads of other wheel companies have kind of popped up recently. There's been like a big surge in wheel companies, but I mean, I've used, Joy Courts and Flatface and Oaks, obviously. I think it depends what your mood is on the day, So I think Flatface for plastic wheels is always really good. They make just super high quality wheels. The bearings are really good. Or if you want something more grippy, then you go down the Oak route or another urethane route. The issue that I have is that most of the time I'm always testing. I'm testing new things, so I'm always pretty much using my own wheels on all my setups that I've got. I do enjoy other wheels. I enjoy Oaks. I think they're really good, high quality wheels, and I do have a couple of sets of Oaks.
You started the company, I think, back in 2011. What made you want to make wheels out of all the fingerboard gear out there? Because I feel most people who start fingerboard companies want to start deck companies.
I think that's why, really, because there were so many deck companies. Even 10 years ago, there was a lot of people making decks, but wheel companies were a real premium back then. There was no Joycool. I mean, really, the only wheel companies that I can think of that were around were like Black River, Flatface, and Oak. Look further back and you look at Uralt and Epidemic. They'd both gone by then. There was no Uralt or Epidemic, I don't think, in 2011. So I was quite interested in I wanted to make a really small wheel. There wasn't really many mini wheels around back then.
What was the timeline like between having the idea to start a wheel company and actually dropping the first stock?
If you say 10 years ago when it very first started, that was a bit of a false start because I started, but I didn't have any real plans or ambitions for it. I just wanted to do something for fun. I think I released maybe one stock of them. And then I did other things. I kind of went away and did some other bits and pieces, and then started making them again in about 2015. And that was where I had more of an idea of how I wanted to make the real wheel and how to make it work for me properly. But it's changing all the time. Even now, I'm looking at new ways of doing things. There's no kind of finished product, I don't think, hopefully with any company out there. If they've got a finished product, then they're not doing it right. They should be, everyone's always looking to do the new thing all the time. Yeah, there's if you're standing still, you're going backwards, that kind of thing,
You had, I think, urethane at one point, right?
Yeah.
Nylon and now plastic. Before plastic, you settled on nylon for a really, really long time. What kind of inspired the idea of creating nylon wheels?
I tested quite a lot of different materials and what I liked and what I found to be a good compromise across everything. You know, you want wheels that are grippy, but you want wheels that are smooth, and that's quite a hard compromise to come to. You know, and there's not too many urethane wheels that are grippy and smooth. And I did the urethane first. The feedback on them was really good, like better than I thought it'd be, because I struggled with them at first. I wasn't such a huge fan. But then I started using the nylon kind of just as a test, and it just instantly it felt a bit different. It kind of clicked, and I think there's something to be said for having a bit of a USP with any product. You know, it's a good thing.
How did you figure out to use nylon though?
It is it's not a very common material, I don't think, and I didn't think I would go with it. I thought I'll give it a try, see how it is to work with and that kind of thing, and it just worked. And I just thought there's no reason not to carry on with nylon. It's a good material, and I stuck with it.
I did kind of talk about this in my review when I spoke to you about the product, but do you want to just talk a bit about why you decided to switch to plastic?
It was a choice of doing something that was just different, because I'd done the nylon wheels for so long, and I thought, well, let's try something else, just, you know, see how it goes. The high quality bearings, as always, in a solid plastic wheel. And obviously when I spoke to you and you said, well, you know, I like them, but the V2s are the V2s, and they're the ones that you liked personally more. It kind of made me think, well, actually, really, what I should do is just add the V3s as an option. It gives people an extra choice, and I think that's a useful thing. There's not too many wheel companies out there that offer different materials. That was the reasoning behind it, just adding a different feel, a different material, but with that same kind of cartwheels aesthetic.
I remember in our initial conversation, you were saying that you were going to phase out the V2s, and I was absolutely heartbroken. I was basically begging you to not get rid of them, because I think even like now, people think of cartwheels and they think of the nylon, even if like I've switched basically, I'm looking around and I've basically switched fully to the V3s, but I definitely think, like, I'm so glad you decided to keep the V2s around, and having, like you said, two options is so rare.
Well, I think a lot of people did say to me, like, so why are you going to phase out the V3s? And then it kind of got to the V2s, and it got to a point for me, and I just kind of thought, I don't know. It just kind of made sense to me that's like, you know, you're moving forward. But then they just said, well, surely having a couple of options is like a really good thing. And I said, oh yeah, it is. So that's what happened. Yeah. So
with the V3s, like, how long did it take for you to be like, okay, I'm gonna make these wheels, and then you made them and then started selling them?
8 months or something like that. Yeah, not like a really, really long time, because obviously I had the experience with the V2s, so I knew roughly in what direction to kind of start. Whereas when it was at the very beginning, there was a lot of umming and erring, like, how am I going to make this the first wheel that I came out with? But after a while, you know where to start and you know where to go from there.
I noticed one of the biggest differences was that the shapes of each wheel have changed throughout the years. So I think with the urethane, you only had, I think, one shape. And then you changed to nylon, which is where you started developing 3 different sizes. But even then, like, the first version of the nylon wheels had, like, they're the Halloween edition size.
Yes, yeah.
And that's, I guess, like, carried on to the V3s, and I'm interested in hearing about the process of design, I guess.
The first ones were skinnier and with a wall and a bearing. Bit odd, because obviously having a wall and a bearing, it goes against things a little bit. It doesn't really make that much sense. But that was my original thought of, well, how am I going to keep the bearings in? This was before I was really thinking about bearing lock and that kind of thing. Then it went to urethane ones that had the dual bearings, and the one side was a bearing. The other side had like a core and then a bearing in it as well. Then, like the Halloween ones that you saw, that kind of one, there was another dual bearing wheel. And then I think 2018, I started with the single bearings, a slightly different design, a little bit bigger all around, a little bit wider. And then the V2s was like a refined version of that. And then the V3s were a different material. But they've always kind of kept the same look to them, kind of, you know. but just slight tweaks all the way through.
Gonna keep talking about shape for a bit, but V2s and the V3s, they're the same name, but they're actually different. Is the main reason just because of the material?
Yeah, the nylon is slightly harder to work with in terms of shape. So to get that such a distinct, refined shape that the V3s have, with the Mega V3s are a really distinctive shape, you know. It would be like nearly impossible to do the same thing with the V2s, just through limitations of the material itself.
Do you think there's anything specific about taking on wheels that's challenging versus a different fingerboard product?
Well, I think decks can't really go wrong. You know, once you get it out there and you know that the holes are right and the shape is right and it's how you want it to be, can't really go wrong. You know, with wheels, there are a lot of things that can go wrong. You know, I don't think there's ever been a wheel that's been created that's been flawless. I think you will find issues with every wheel that's ever existed. It is what it is. I think there's anything mechanical, there's always room for error.
What is your current fingerboard setup?
I've got a few. My main one that I use, I've been using this for a couple of years. I really, really like the setup. So it's an Arbea deck with Black River trucks, old Black River trucks, and V3s, just white on white V3 classics. But then as well, I'm using quite a lot recently the Mega V3s, UAG trucks, and that's an Arbea deck as well. I also really enjoy this. I've got a Decatur setup with a Decatur deck. They're Mega V3s and Black River trucks. Love Drug deck with Dynamics and classic V3s. Love Drug, really nice decks as well. Vortex trucks with the cheaper hangers, newer dual bearing wheels. I don't know if you tried them, the V3 dual bearings. And then one of the Etchy decks, Oak, flat face, collab, yeah, Black River trucks, and it's a Wub deck. It's nice.
Is there anything you have planned for the future of Cartwheels? Like, what do you see in the future for the company?
Obviously, things like the V4 is it's a given. There will be a V4. I've got a good idea for the V4s. Something new, something that no one's done before. So I'm going to try it. I can't wait to try that. Also, I want to possibly start stocking a little bit more of everyone else's things. Possibly in the future, it's going to expand a little bit like that. Like I say, any growth is just got to be really organic, really slow, just kind of. I don't want to overreach too quickly and put myself in a difficult situation. So yeah, just slow progress and hopefully just making things that people like and carrying on doing what I'm doing.
Where can people find Cartwheels?
You can find Cartwheels at cartwheelsfb.com and also on Instagram, which is at cartwheelsfb. Thank you very much.
Thanks for doing this.
No, thank you for having me. Thanks for asking.
So I'm actually in the middle of editing that episode you just saw, and I wanted to just kind of say thank you for all of the support that you guys have been giving me over the last year. I don't think I'd be able to film the types of videos that I do if it weren't for my subscribers and my followers, because I really do believe that the reason why I have a lot of companies supporting me as well is, I don't know, it sounds kind of silly coming from a fingerboard channel, I think, but this community does mean a lot to me, and I love that I get to come home and play with my little finger skateboard and make videos about it. But yeah, since this is the launch of a new project, I just wanted to say thanks. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this first episode of The Boardroom. It was a lot of fun to make. This is actually the first time I got to speak to Simon over Zoom, which was pretty crazy. Like, we've known each other over the years, but this is the first time we're speaking, like having an actual conversation. But yeah, all the links you'll need for Cartwheels, as well as my Instagram, everything will be in the description. So yeah, thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.